Want to be unforgettable? Make others feel deeply heard.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for listening today. And so I asked a question. Do you want to be unforgettable? and I'm asking that because a lot of time as leaders, we don't understand what it means to be in a position where we were. Sometimes we forget about where we were. And I can't say that I have, always remembered that I was an employee, at the bottom of the barrel, being the last hired, space. And sometimes we don't feel as though that, especially if we're the last person hired in this position, that we can be heard in that particular situation. We don't think that if we spoke up, that someone is going to understand where we're coming from because we're new. And granted, sometimes we're just trying to understand what is our true job, what is our true situation. And sometimes we don't value, as we go up the ladder, we don't value the innocence in those questions. And that's something that I had to learn, when I was a church administrator and I listened to some of the people that were under me, if you will, some of their questions. Sometimes I was curious whether or not, if they were challenging me or whatever it was because they were older, and some probably were, right? But was there a true genuineness of trying to understand where direction we were going in as far as the office was concerned? And so I had to learn, how it felt and be in tune with when I was not the one that was in charge. Because I had forgotten. And mind you, it was only about a year and a half, prior to, where I was, on the lower rung of that ladder, right? And so the thing is, in that space, I had to reconnect with a part of me where curiosity, genuineness, and a desire to deeply understand what my position was, what my job was, what my mission was, I had lost that because I was thinking more of the quote unquote corporate goals and dreams and aspirations. So I lost who I really was and what was really going on. So I lost connection with the true objective, which is making sure that people were heard. So then what I started to do is I'm speaking to some of the parishioners, some of the people that are around, and then I started to grow that idea. Now we're talking as far back as 2009. So I started to grow that idea to where I am now, as an award-winning podcaster, of being able to speak to someone, listen to what they're saying, and have a true dialogue back and forth. So, are we listening to respond or to understand? And I think that's what happens, especially because as a leader, sometimes we're listening to the question to respond and not to really understand where that person may be going or coming from. Sometimes, we feel as though we need to be the expert. We need to feel like we are in charge or in command of the topic or whatever it is. But are we really trying to respond to their question, which does not really always answer the question? Or are we really trying to understand what's going on and now being able to allow that individual to feel important? So in this podcasting space, as y'all know, as you've been listening, I have interviewed quite a few important people. Everybody's important. Everybody's respectful. Everybody's respected. Everyone has value. Since the very beginning of this podcast. Also, those that I have interviewed on the other two podcasts, being the Neighbors podcast and the No Fruit podcast. Everyone I have spoken to has a value to them, and I respect them in that space. So I have developed a genuine curiosity to speak to these individuals. It's not about, growing a podcast, which is, that's always everybody's intention, right? Whatever you're doing, you want it to grow and flourish and things like that. But see, I talk to some of these individuals to learn from them, and I ask them questions that are thoughtful, because some of it teaches me at the same time as I'm speaking to them. But here's the other part, is this as well. See, as I'm listening to them, I'm listening in a manner so that I do not interrupt them. Allow them to get all of their ideas and words and everything out. Because here's the thing. A lot of times we could be speaking, right? I know it's happened to me quite often. That I could be speaking about something, and that initially my first thought that the answer is not, or the comment or the conversation starter is not 100% clear, and I have to kind of work it out as I am speaking. So if we can have real conversations without trying to interrupt someone, i.e., to respond to them and allow them to work it all the way out, and give them the opportunity to maybe rephrase, reword, rethink, allow that stuff to hit back on their own ear, because again, that's happened to me as well. And now I'm trying to understand where they are really trying to come from, where their perspectives are being driven from. So because I know for myself, I like to understand people's why. I.e., I create the Well, Why Not workbook for people to know their why and what's going on. So as I'm listening, I'm trying to understand what drives them, what motivates them, what encourages them, what makes them want to withdraw, what makes them want to hold back, what makes them want to forget everything that has happened. See, a lot of times we don't understand the background story of who we're speaking to. And so now we almost negate the importance of that individual. Now, you can't always do that in an open setting. I understand. Sometimes you need to talk to them off on the side. But I think that's a key point of understanding where these individuals are coming from. So now that the people can feel valued when they're heard, because ultimately that's going to last longer than the conversation y'all actually had. I have built some tremendous relationships with some of the people I've interviewed. I still talk to some people, 2 years later, things like that. So I just want you to understand that today, I encourage you to listen, not to respond, but to understand the person you are speaking to.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chisholm on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?